Very good morning, everyone. Welcome to Admiral Markets. My name is Chris. Thank you for joining us in this live webinar at Admiral Markets. And we're going to take a look at the charts in just a second, of course. Before we do that, though, as always, we have this disclaimer to explain. This webinar is shown to a global audience, yet may not be suitable for everyone. Take a look at this link, admiralmarketsglobal.com. Select your country of residence and contact the appropriate entity to find out more information about that and other details. Also, please be aware that trading for exchange in global financial markets is considered high risk and may not be suitable for everyone. Please seek the advice of an independent financial advisor for more information on that. This webinar is for informational and educational purposes only. And by continuing watching this webinar, you agree with this disclaimer and you're aware of the risk involved when trading. All right, thank you so much for your attention on that. Before we kick off the webinar, just want to run some things through with you. For instance, the calendar that we have, the economic calendar that could be showing what kind of news events, of course, we might be facing this day. And so far, we don't see any red tagged events. There are only a couple of green and yellow ones. So nothing major to be expected today. Of course, the last weeks, we had quite a lot of news, in fact, with a lot of interest rates last week and the week before. So that was an interesting time. We saw that the Fed was a bit more cautious in their words. For instance, we saw some rate hikes on Kiwi and Euro. This week, we have basically the non-farm payroll on Friday. That's, of course, I would say the biggest one of this week. Plus, you got also the end of the month on Thursday, right, the 31st. And well, I don't have any statistics on that, but from my feeling, from my own experiences, it does tend to get a bit more volatile, or it's a bit more of a reversal day, let's say, than other days. So it's something to consider. It's also the last day of the quarter, which makes it, again, just a tad more important, perhaps. And then Friday, of course, is the first day of the new quarter and new month, and the last day of the week. So that's something to reckon with. It's not the end of the world here, but just something to maybe keep in mind, depending on how your risk management plan plays out. Alrighty, let's take a look at the heat map. And good morning, William. It's good to see you. Good to see everyone here. We got some stocks that rose a lot here, but let's take a look at our currency pairs. And we see that pound yen, right, the biggest volatility and the biggest movement, because it's one of the few pairs actually that is above or below the 1% mark. So we can take a look at that. Pound USD the same, also a good one. You can see Euro Swissy way down here. That's not a good pair to trade. Low volatility, low movement. So that's not something that would be interesting. What do we got? We got dollar CAD, could be something to look at. Some yen pairs here on the upside as well. All right. So with that said, let's take a look at the euro dollar. Alrighty. Nothing much really happened last week. And we got a couple candles going sideways, just forming a range. I'm, of course, talking about this particular area where I have a green circle. That area was basically the price action of last week. A lot of indecision. And the euro dollar seemingly a bit lost in what direction it wants to move. Finally, yesterday, we had a break to the upside, and price was already respecting the 38.2 fib right here. As you can see at 111.40 after putting a fib from the swing high, swing low here, the entire upside. So that was one of the reasons the corrective move down and the bullish move up here, that I think that the environment was still relatively bullish on a 4-hour chart at least. Weekly chart, of course, there's still a very good chance of a downtrend continuation eventually in the upcoming months. But on the 4-hour chart, we definitely see still the potential here for an uptrend continuation. All right, so the 38.2 fib, if the 38.2 fib would have broken, I said yes last week, if price would have moved down towards the 50 fib, then I think it would have been interesting to look for a bounce at the 50 fib, right? Well, that didn't happen. Price didn't move below that triangle and instead broke to the upside yesterday. So if we zoom into the hourly chart, we can see that break a bit better. And I do think I have somehow 20 fibs here. Let me get rid of, sorry for that. Let me get rid of, I have this fib still on. This fib, okay, quickly then. As I said on the weekly chart, we still have this momentum, right? And we have a consolidation box here. So this orange zone is a lot of heavy resistance, and the 38.2 fib is resistance, and the 50 fib, all those three levels are heavy resistances. That's still the same as I was explaining last week. Nothing changed on that front. All right, going down to the hourly now. The break yesterday didn't go all too far though. It went about 40 pips after the trendline break, or let's see. Yeah, about that. So now we're getting again a small little bull flag. So if we zoom into the 50-minute chart, you can see that a bit better, right? So for me, this is still bullish because we have an impulse here. We had a break, and this is looking corrective. So from that point of view, I think that an upside could be certainly possible today, and I think that would be probably the most interesting for the euro dollar at least. Now, I wouldn't say it's necessarily ready right now because you can see that it's in the channel. So if we put the channel on the chart like this, we can see it's at the top of that channel. So I don't think that is a particularly good moment to take a trade to the upside. Nor do I think it's a good trade to the downside necessarily because I'm looking for a break or a pullback and break. So for me, that's not worth the risk of taking a short, considering the bullish break that we had yesterday, right? So from that point of view, I don't think it's worth it. Now, we got about 7 minutes left before new pivot points will be available. I'm expecting that the daily pivot point will probably be around here somewhere. So a hook back to that level and a bounce, I think, could be very, very likely, actually. But let's see if on a 5-minute chart, for instance, you can see already a bit of resistance at this trend line, at this trend channel on the 5-minute world, right? So if it makes a bit of a pullback here and then starts to show signs of a bounce here, that could be an early way of trying to catch a bounce there. It has its risks because it's still in this bear flag, so that's a bit of a disadvantage when trading that idea. But we can keep an eye on it, in the next hour. There are about 12, 13, 15 minute, 13 5-minute candles still coming up, so we can definitely keep an eye on that. But it has a bit of its risk. Now, the less riskier approach would be just to probably take a look at the 50-minute chart and wait for a break above this little bear flag, above 112, because we've got some fractals here. Let price basically push with an hourly candle above it, or wait for some 50-minute candles, wait for a bit of a hook back, and then take the bounce off that level. All right, so that could be another approach. Now, what if price doesn't do what I think, and it really starts to move down quickly like this? All right, let's say that's the scenario. Well, in that case, I'm still not interested in shorting. It could be a short, I think, only if this trend line breaks. This purple trend line breaks, and price basically shows momentum like that, shows a pullback in the New York section, maybe look for continuation down to that 50 fib. So later today, perhaps, or even maybe tomorrow morning, but that could be an option. Otherwise, even if it shows some bearish candles here, I would still think that it's not a good short with support so close by. So it would have to really break through it, hook back, and then we can get that fall. That would be a bearish scenario in my view. Other than that, if that doesn't happen, I think it looks bullish, and I'll be hunting for that. I'll be keeping an eye on the market and seeing if there's a way to catch along on the euro dollar up to, well, where? Let's see. The main target is minus 272 target at 114.50-ish. I would be cautious around 114.50. That might be a bit, far-fetched for today's target though, right? Because that's 250 pips from here. That might be this week's target. For today, I would like to see where the pivot points are, and I'll know that in 4 minutes. But obviously, price might, if it does break above this channel, it could do something like this. Make a break, then pause throughout the Asian session later today, or tomorrow actually, and then make a break tomorrow morning again. Right, something like that. Then it could maybe make a, let me draw that again. Then it could make maybe a bigger retracement, end the week somewhere here, and then next week maybe complete that move up to that target. That's a bit difficult. I would like to take a look later this week. The main target is this level, but I'm not sure if it's going to get there this week. Sorry, today. It could get there this week though, or beginning next week. So I think this week is probably pretty likely. So this week, let's say. So up today, pause, and then up tomorrow, pause, and then maybe complete that move on Thursday or whatever. Alrighty. Good. So we got pivot points coming up in 3 minutes. In the meantime, we'll go back to this one in just a second. But in the meantime, let's take a look at some other pairs like the pound USD. I was a bit hesitant on the pound USD actually yesterday in my weekly video recap that you can find on Mondays actually on Admiral Markets website, of course, by going to analytics and click on wave analysis. I know that wouldn't seem likely, but the recap video of mine is on wave analysis. So from that point of view, actually that could be maybe better to change that in the future. Something to think about. I'll maybe ask Admiral Markets to put it under technicals. Anyhow, pound was a bit hesitant yesterday, and we were looking at a triangle here, and that triangle broke to the upside. I was saying if it does break to the upside, there's a good chance of a zigzag, or I think it was actually breaking during the video, a zigzag up to these fib targets and Fibonacci retracement levels. So you can see price stopping at the 50 fib if you take the top to bottom. If we take this swing high, swing low, it's a 61.8 fib. So price basically making that upside yesterday. Now, how about today? Today, I still think it's actually a bit difficult pair because if I look at the 4-hour chart, here we go. It is quite impulsive, but it's impulsive in a very funky way because it's making these ups and downs like a roller coaster. And from that point of view, I don't think it's a very clear structure at this moment. Not on the 4-hour chart, at least. Daily chart, we can take a look. Daily chart, we did hit resistance at the 78.6 fib, but there's also divergence between these bottoms. Another factor that makes it quite a headache, actually, right? To trade. All right. So not a big let's say help either. All right, weekly chart. Last week was a bearish candle, so that might give us some indication that any upside will still find some heavy resistance at last week's high. And the monthly candle, still bullish, but we got still 3 days left before this one is finished. So no matter how I look at it, I don't know what you guys think. Maybe you want to chip in here your thoughts or 2 cents, because from my point of view, I just don't see anything very interesting on the pound USD. It could still be bearish. But you got only a couple of small 4-hour bearish candles. Getting my words mixed up today. This really is not a very strong price action signal. Yeah, we had a wick here, so that could, be an indication that we might make a turn. Um, I, I think I would like to see maybe a 4-hour candle here. Is this a strong 4-hour candle? Let's take a look at this size. This is at least 50 pips. What is 50 pips here? Bringing price to 141.90 and bearish. If it goes all the way down to 141.90 within this 4-hour candle and it closes bearishly, like this one was bullish, or something like this, for instance, right? If that happens here, I'll probably be more inclined to say, okay, this is actually a zigzag correction, and we're seeing a turn, and we could see the continuation like this with a fall to, well, maybe let's say at least retest this bottom to be conservative. All right, and if it breaks that bottom, well, then a conservative target would be minus 272, 139.60. We got 140 psychological level also to think about, then 138.50, minus 61.8 target. All right, so if we get a bearish candle, I think a stop loss above that candle high or above this fractal are both possible, depending on how far you want to target. If you're aiming for deep target, I think a wider stop loss is better, right? If a short target, close target is used, then a tighter stop loss is possible, and then trailing the candle highs. I think that if this candle turns bullish, let's say there's a doji, or it actually ends up like this candle, for instance. Something like this. Let me be a bit more specific. Okay, if it's like that candle instead, a bullish candle like this, well, then obviously that would pose more of a chance that price could retrace deeper and higher. And in that case, this could turn out to be a bull flag. If that's the case, price would have to bounce sometime soon, actually within a few pips. All right, I'm not going to take that trade because there's bearish momentum at the moment, but if it does bounce there and the 4-hour chart does show a candle like that, then that could be actually a bull flag, and there could be a scenario where upside is possible today. In that case, on a 15-minute chart, I would probably be looking for price to, let's see, if it makes a turn here, doesn't seem likely at the moment, but if it makes a turn and then starts to break probably above this fractal here or these fractals there, it might be worth looking for longs. All right, so let's go back to the euro. Anyhow, I'm not a big fan of the pound at the moment. The euro dollar is not showing any bullishness at the moment. It's actually making downside like this, and is not kind of slowly correcting and then bouncing. So that scenario is out of the window, unfortunately for me, because I was bullish, or the chart was telling me to be bullish, at least how I look at it. So that didn't happen. We're getting a clear signal that price is moving with momentum to the downside. And that's fine. At least nothing bad happened here. Price is clearly indicating that it's not respecting this bottom nor this support levels like I thought it could, with this small little correction and bounce and potential breakout after that. So with that said, I think that obviously the breakout to the upside is probably not going to happen anytime soon. And we're going to have to check probably still this hourly candle. I'm not anyhow interested in shorting, as I said, below or above, I should say, this purple line. So from my point of view, it's not worth shorting just because the support is close by. So from my point of view, not a interesting setup. But if it does show one more candle like this that really breaks through that candle, then I would look for 15 or 5-minute pullback like this and continuation. Alrighty. Odd USD. All right. Yesterday I was talking about a long after this 4-hour candle. Anyone joined that trade? So it did retrace about halfway. So anyone who waited for a small retracement of that candle got a bit better entry than taking entry right at the candle close, a couple of pips. But if you're still in that trade, I would get out at break even right now, in fact, because the candles are not showing any specific momentum that I think is interesting. You got some candles here that have wicks, no decisive candle. I don't think it's worth staying in that trade at the moment. I would, get out of that. I myself just trail stopped the lows, so that's already it for me because it went through that low. Now maybe I was a bit impatient. Maybe I should have trail stopped this candle here. But to me, I think that I rather uh, be a bit more cautious here. This is still a triangle, so I don't think there's anything wrong with using the candle lows. This could still be a correction like that, and it didn't show any momentum in this particular segment. So, did anyone take that trade that I mentioned yesterday? If it breaks the purple line, there's a good breakout scenario for price to move down to this support level at 73. And if it somehow does bounce at this line, it's still possible, right? It could move to the top of the triangle and obviously break or bounce and either stay in that triangle or break above that triangle. I'm not a big fan of hanging in triangles for too long because the market likes to make, I think in general, the market makes a lot of ups and downs within those triangles. So I don't think we should be overly attached to any setup in the triangle. I think with trend trades, obviously we got a bit more space, we got a bit more time. We can have a bit more patience just because eventually price tends to continue higher or lower. Alrighty. Let me get rid of this fib. Pound yen had a very good run up here. The 4-hour chart is quite choppy. But obviously, the 4-hour is in a bullish momentum. So with that in play, it's always lucrative or interesting to try to see if we can join the party and see if we can see a good moment to try to ride along with that momentum because we don't know. The momentum can always still continue. At the moment, there is momentum and it could still continue, right? Why not? But with this particular pair, especially yesterday was a strong bullish candle. And we could say that there is divergence between these bottoms. And price respected the 61.8 fib. Price broke above this resistance level yesterday with a strong daily candle. So from that point of view, maybe there is a good chance to get to these fib targets. So there is that space there potentially, although it is a reversal trade on this daily chart. And we see that breakout here. So it's always potentially interesting to try to trade that. Now, of course, there is a bit of indecision here. If you look on the hourly chart, you will see that a bit better. So is that an indecision to make a hook back here, for instance, back to support? Or is that just an indecision for continuation? And that's something I think we still need to see. Let me take this fib off. Alrighty, I think that we just barely don't have divergence, so that's not necessarily lingering around a corner, so that's good for upside then at least. So no divergence. So I don't think that we'll probably see a strong pullback here. I think that, let's check the 4-hour chart. It could be a lighter pullback. Here's a bit of a zone right in here. That could be support, for instance. We got a moving average as well. So that could be where price might bounce. Now it does depend on the dollar yen and pound USD, and that's a bit of indecision what's going on here. Pound USD is moving down, but it's at this bottom of the flag at the moment. Dollar yen is right at resistance. So we never know, of course, pound yen, if the dollar yen does respect this resistance, it isn't a strong channel up, but if it respects that resistance and turns, for instance, doesn't seem very likely at the moment, but just for hypothetical case, just to discuss, and if the pound then starts to fall as well, then obviously the pound yen could be weak as well, and we could see maybe a bit more momentum and something like this occur as well. So I don't want to indicate that this support level is very, very powerful. It does certainly depend on how these other pairs move. But just looking at the pound yen itself, I think that we got a break. We have divergence on the daily chart, and it could be we got 5 waves too. And this seems to be an ABC zigzag correction. And we got to bounce at the 61.8 fib, right? So if you weigh all those arguments, and we got to break above the trend line too. So if you start counting all of those things together, then I think this is a decent bullish breakout. And I think it could be worth trying to trade the second part of the reversal, right? Or third part. So from that point of view, I think that this is not a bad support level that might see that continuation. All right, so I will keep an eye on this zone and see how price responds to that level. Okay, now the second scenario, let me take a look at the pivot points. Let's see, pivots. S1 is at 160.85, for instance. So it could get down to the S1 and bounce, for instance. All right, that's one scenario. The second scenario would be, let's see. I think if we got a good consolidation zone, but I think if price shows a bullish candle here, I think that we got a good chance of follow through, or if we break above these fractals, I think that could be a good signal as well to look for long with stop losses below that consolidation zone. So breakout here I don't think is bad either on the pound yen. So I like that pound yen. I think it's one of the better ones today actually. So I'm going to take a look for a bounce or a break. But it'll have to be at least a break above this fract at the very minimum. This candle high right here. Alrighty, others that I think is interesting. I thought let's see, was it I think the pound New Zealand. We got a good trend line here, and price is trying to break below the 21 EMA again. All right, so looks like price is about to continue again to the downside. We had good momentum here. This seems to be a triangle at the moment. and we're close to breaking that triangle. Right, so that's a bit of a mixed picture. Obviously, pound yen, is potentially bullish. Pound New Zealand looks more bearish, right? But that's sometimes can happen when we're looking obviously at the yen and the New Zealand. The New Zealand yen is probably moving up a lot, and that's explaining the difference here. Obviously, it could happen that pound New Zealand breaks and the pound yen upside scenario doesn't happen. Or the pound yen upside scenario happens, but the pound New Zealand doesn't break to the downside. Right? So just because two pairs seemingly are kind of better set up for one or the other direction doesn't mean that they'll both get triggered. It could mean it really depends on the pound today, right? We'll get pound strength or weakness. I think it's difficult to read. I don't think there's any particular favorite. At this moment, it might seem the downside seems better, but I really want to wait for this 4-hour candle. So if this is a bearish candle, that might also give an indication that this pound yen upside is not going to happen. If the pound dollar has a strong 4-hour bearish candle, then I think I'll just would not be that interested in pound yen upside, right? So, and I would probably be more interested in pound New Zealand downside. And the question is, how would I be interested? Let's see. I think we got a couple of ways. The pivot point is 211, 211, no, 2.113, right here. So one way, if it does make a bull flag up to, a bear flag, sorry, up to that level, that could be a good bouncing spot. Right, that's one way. So look for a bit of a pullback. We got a big wick here. I don't think that's a good breakout to the downside. I think that we'll get a retracement. And let's see, any bounce here I think could be interesting. Let me double check. Stop loss I think could be okay if it's above this. This is the dominant candle, it's the master candle still. A stop loss above that high should be okay. It's a bit risky, but it could be okay. The better one is probably just above this fractal. Oh, sorry about that. I'm trying to get this fib to work. All right. I don't see anything that might be a danger to this idea. Another way could be, though, obviously, to just wait for, let's see, a break above or below this fractal, I should say, right? Breakout below this fractal. But I'm not sure that, this does require quite a wide stop loss. This is a pretty big distance, so. But that could be another way of doing that. That could be an alternative. All right, that's the pound New Zealand. Otherwise, I think, let's see, dollar CAD. I wanted to talk about dollar CAD is in a triangle 2. It moved up to the target, finally made a bigger correction. Is that a reversal or is that just a correction? If it breaks support, it's just a correction. If it breaks resistance, that could be a reversal. So these two trend lines I think are interesting. Other than that, let's see. Euro yen is trying to push higher too. Seems very similar to the pound yen at the moment. I think I'm not really a big fan of the euro yen, but it could push higher. It really depends on what this dollar yen is doing. If the dollar yen can ride this channel and break above 113.80, there might be some more yen weakness. But if this channel breaks, we could see some yen strength too. So it's an interesting spot for the yen. I think that we got to get price above 113.80 or below this channel to have a better understanding of this yen side. Okay, so that will also impact euro yen obviously. If the euro dollar respects this support line and starts to show a bullish candle on the hourly, and if the yen breaks through 113.80, then obviously I think that the euro yen could be well set up for upside too, because we see two important factors: euro strength, yen weakness, and this might be moving along nicely. I think from a technical point of view, euro yen, let's see, there is a bit of divergence. If price gets back to, for instance, in this zone, that could be a bouncing spot for euro yen as well, just like the pound yen basically. Alrighty. What else? Euro pound. Let's take a look. Euro pound correcting lower. We saw a bit of a momentum here, and then a correction, and again momentum. So it's making a bit of a zigzag correction. And last time we looked, the euro pound was somewhere in here, and I said this does not look good for shorts because it's right at resistance, and indeed it pushed one more time up, in fact, and did not respect that zone. There was too much momentum here, but now it is correcting lower. Still kind of a ascending wedge, so I would say it's closer to support at this moment. Could be again bouncing spot. All right, it might be a bit lower. I'm not trading this one anyhow, so I'm going to skip that. Doesn't look that interesting to me. Euro AUD does not look interesting either. Just a lot of sideways mess. And looks like a very large box. I don't like that at all. So I'm not going to discuss that. Same for the Euro New Zealand, really. Does not look interesting to me. Odd yen might be a bit different. Odd yen is in the big box too, though, but I thought it was a bit different. Let me check. I had it in my mind that it seemed interesting, but not sure why anymore. I think I'm going to withdraw that conclusion. That does not really seem very inspiring to me at this point, to say the least. Okay, skipping that one for the moment. Pound Swissy. All right, Pound Swissy actually looks a bit bearish. Now, of course, or not bit, but definitely looks bearish, sorry. But we do have price bouncing off this bottom, but we're seeing kind of a channel like this as well. So if that channel breaks, it could be interesting. So I think that this resistance line is interesting. I mean, if it manages to break above it, it could even be a continuation. Don't get me wrong. And but if it stays within this, if it respects this zone here and turns around, it could be easily downside scenario too. So same like the pound New Zealand, it probably still needs to prove itself a bit more. Let me take a look at the 4-hour chart. Probably needs a break below 138. All right, odd New Zealand. I was looking at odd New Zealand earlier today, and there's a bit of a struggle here, but I don't think that that struggle is going to bring price a lot lower. I think we are going to see a dip, but I think we are going to see a bounce as well. And the reason for that is, well, first of all, we don't have very strong divergence. This is still a very good momentum. So from that point of view, also the moving averages are aligned, and I think that if price gets back to the 38.2 fib, which is equal to the long-term moving average, I think that could be a very strong zone. I think that there could be a good bounce, and it could be a good continuation spot. Like this, or the 50 fib for that matter. We got tops here too. That could be now support, and price could continue with that momentum we saw right here already, and here for that matter. Excuse me. So I like the odd New Zealand potential for upside. Last week we talked about the upside actually somewhere in here. I don't remember exactly. With the target, this target actually. Let me show you. That worked out well. Maybe you managed to take that trade. Somewhere here we're talking about odd New Zealand to go up to that golden line. Why? Because there was a potential for a head and shoulders. Price actually passed that line and continued further than that, but still that trade worked out well. And now, after that upside, we're seeing indeed this correction. All right, got a good momentum here. This looks a lot like blah, or in other words, a correction. So I think we can see a zigzag unfold. This is the A, this is a B, and we can see now the C part. Bring it basically to what I just said, the 50 or 38.2 fib probably. All right, so that could be good bouncing spots. Now, if price stops here and then just goes flat, sideways like this, right? Now, who knows? It could still be more downside to continue after that. But for the moment, these will be stopping spots. And if then price breaks below those stopping spots, then there could be continuation. This is for the moment, I'm assuming it's an ABC, basically. But if price really gets its bearish legs and starts to fall quickly, this could also just be a 1, 2, 3, and we're making a reversal. That's possible, but for the moment, I'm not assuming it. So I'm assuming that this is an ABC and we'll get a bounce at this level. Why? Well, there are a whole bunch of things. A few of them I said is the momentum, no divergence. One second, let me get rid of this fib. Third thing, we got on the weekly chart, divergence plus, I still think that this is an A and this is a B and this is a C. So we're in a larger correction. I think it's definitely possible. If this is indeed the A and this is the B and this is the C, and this was a correction here for B and we broke out, Then if this is the break and this will be the pullback, then we could get the continuation within the blue sea. That's another reason. All right, so well, the chart will, will soon enough, I guess, prove if that's indeed true. And price will is gonna give me that info. So, but that's my plan at the moment, at least on the odd New Zealand. All right, let's take a look at some other pairs, maybe some instruments here. DAX still really not going anywhere. Last week just a doji, week before a doji, not doing much. We got oil making a bit of a few days downside here after a large rally up. Let me get rid of this fib. Okay, good. Basically, oil has hit its target, its retracement target. Why? Because we had, excuse me, divergence between these bottoms. We had divergence here. Oil hit the long-term moving average, target hit. We had divergence here. Oil hit the long-term moving average, target hit. Now, in the meantime, though, we do have weekly divergence as well. So, that's something to be wary of. We had it here too, but it's still pushed lower. So, I think oil, if I look at it this way, if I put a fib from here to here, let's see. Well, I think that as long as it stays above that orange line, 236.30 could still be bouncing spots. If it does bounce there and moves up to 46, right, then I think that we're looking at a potential bigger reversal or retracement on the weekly. If it goes up to 46 like this, I think we can see a three-wave correction and then one more move up to 65. If it doesn't move up to 46, all right, and price basically starts to make a channel like this, obviously then eventually it's going to continue with this channel, even break that channel and start moving faster to the downside. All right, but I think that channel, that bearish break would need to push below 35. If it breaks below 35, well, then we can maybe make a new lower low. We had one here, we had one here, we could make one more. Right? And we could have that fall right there. So it's a bit of a transition zone, and now you know which levels I think are important. Gold, well, still a bullish breakout, but making a retracement. So basically, price can still bounce at these fibs, like the 38.2 fib. So a bit of more retracement down seems likely, down to 1190, 1165. Any questions? Any pairs you would like to take a look at? Does anything come to mind that you want to take a view? In the meantime, I'm just looking at some exotic pairs maybe that could be interesting. New Zealand yen was moving up. Remember I was saying, looking at pound New Zealand, pound yen, and said that pound New Zealand yen must be moving up. And you can see that there was a triangle, of course, but price is kind of breaking out of that triangle. Like that. slowly but surely moving up. And if it's not the pound yen, it could be the pound New Zealand. Sorry. If it's not the pound yen, it could be the New Zealand yen. Excuse me. That might be interesting for upside. No divergence at the moment. And we're building momentum after a break. We got good strong 4-hour candles, I think. So even taking a long here, about halfway this candle, with a tight stop loss below the candle low, I don't think is necessarily a bad idea. Let's just take a look at the daily. Okay, we got some monthly weakness perhaps to the downside, but other than that, I think that's not very strong argument not to take it. So that could be a setup. I think that that is a setup that I like. I think that's a strong candle. 76, 20, 20, 21, 19, something like that. Price could be just, stop loss could be just below that 4-hour candle. There is a bit of risk if the yen does not break. I mean, it is at a crucial spot. That's the only thing perhaps on the yen side that seems a bit risky. Let me take a look at this candle here, this hourly candle. Yeah, so yeah, stop loss somewhere below here, I think. Could be 76.17. Sorry. Because we don't know how far this can retrace. It could still dip more before it probably will bounce. I think that the chance of a bounce seems decent. Now, you never know. Obviously, nothing is for sure, but if it breaks through 76.20, then basically we're out of this channel. At the moment, price is riding this uptrend channel. It's doing so very nicely. And there's no divergence in this channel. So there's no warning. I mean, if it does break, it, you can't prevent everything. It could happen. The fact that there's no divergence doesn't mean price couldn't move down and break it. But at this moment, I think those chances, although never totally removed, are on the lower side. That looks good. New Zealand yen probably even the better one. So let me take a look at the Kiwi dollar. I don't think I looked at that one yet as well. Kiwi dollar seems a bit more a mixture of things because we got triple top here. We have support line, two support lines kicking in. So it's looking a bit like an ascending wedge with a flat top and and a support line that has an angle to the upside. And I think that here too we can see price has broken above this resistance. So even with the Kiwi dollar, we could be at a bouncing spot, right? That's good for the New Zealand yen. Other than that, New Zealand dollar does not look that great as the New Zealand yen to me. I don't know. There is not that much confluence. The price is about halfway support and resistance. So I don't know. It does not look that great, but it could use it as a bouncing spot, but it's not as interesting as New Zealand yen in my opinion. Aussie is getting back to the support trend line, which could be a bouncing spot, or a break spot. So we'll keep an eye on this. Move a bit lower to an hourly. right, and see how price responds as it gets lower. So let's go back to our starting spot on the euro and pound. Alrighty. Pound made that dash, or euro made that dash to the downside. What's it doing now? So if we take a look at the 5-minute candles, we have one, two, three, fourth candle broke the low again. Now we have one, two, three candles not breaking this low. So considering, I know that this is bearish momentum, right? I can see it on the 5-minute chart, but we got support still close by. And as long as this bottom holds right here, this could still be a pullback, I think. And then we'll take a look at dollar ZAR, by the way. I got a question about that pair from Sandil, so we'll definitely take a look at that after this euro and pound. So I think that this could still be a retracement. I know that many might be have turned bearish somehow already, but for me, it's too close to support. I still think that this leg is intact, and I think there's still a good chance at least that this is just a zigzag correction down to the minus 61.8 target. Look at that. I might be totally wrong, but this is what the charts are telling me how I view it. So if price still manages to make a dip, but not break this bottom in the next couple of candles, and starts to show weakness here, it could be a bouncing spot. Just like that could have happened here if it were not for this strong down candle, right? We didn't get the slow move down here. But we might get something like this here. And I think that could be still a bouncing spot. And we could see basically a weakness here. We got a clear bounce at the 61.8 target. We don't know if that's going to be a big bounce or a small bounce. We had already a small bounce, but I don't trade those small bounces. All right, so anyhow, we would not have taken the trade here at the minus 61.8 target. Even if I had the fib on an hour ago, I wouldn't have traded it anyhow, right? But if I had the fib on, then I would not have done anything regardless. But so it doesn't matter. But in retrospect, we can see, of course, that these targets work nicely, but I would not have used them for an entry here. Okay, I'm not trying to say that. But I'm trying to say that because we do see a target here, if I do see weakness on this side, that does become interesting for me because of the fact, not just as there's a target, but because that we have this momentum, we have a break. We had a break here. Where's my break here? And that this looks like a zigzag. And on a higher time frame, we see basically a bounce up to 38.2 fib, and that this could be a continuation up. Another way could be to use the 50-minute chart, but that might be a bit late. But it could be 15 hook back 2. All right, so I think still more bullish. Pound USD looked bearish, right? But the candle did not finish. That's why we need to wait for this candle to finish, because now all of a sudden there's a wick, right? So these open candles mean nothing to us. They change their character. We need to wait for a close, otherwise it's not going to tell us much. For the moment, as you can see, price is finding demand here about halfway that candle at these tops too. And that's why I said at the bottom of this channel, that's why I said it's difficult to know. It would be really guessing whether we get a bounce or break here. We are getting some bounce at the bottom of this channel. Of the potential channel, we didn't know it was a channel. Where we said there's a potential for that to happen. It really depends how this 4-hour candle closes, because this could be a dip back and it could just be a pullback before we rally one more time. Or it closes bearish and it could be a break. So definitely need to, I think, be flexible here and just keep an eye on this price action. All right, trying to find this particular currency pair. There we go. This is a pair that I have not looked at actually, so you got to bear with me as I grasp the long-term trend here. Excuse me. Pretty big uptrend here. Alrighty, let's see. We got, wow, a big move up. We do have now 10 candles not breaking this high. So we got a substantial pause. Okay, let me put on the template here. Alrighty, daily chart, no divergence. Oh, sorry about that. I lost my chart, so let me pull that back. So we didn't have any divergence on that chart. We also see that price is basically, even though it's correcting to the downside, it's still in an uptrend because the moving averages are still aligned, bullishly aligned. All right, so let me get back that particular pair and put on my template again. There we go. All right, so we can see that if price manages, I would say, to probably break above this zone. We got a bit of a box going on here. Range, consolidation. Some spikes up and down, really. Bit of volatile movements before that. So I don't see anything to trade here at the moment. But I would say on the daily chart, if it manages to get above this resistance, we got a good chance for a breakout. Or if it actually manages to get a bit lower as well, I think it's still a good bouncing spot. Either at the moving averages or at this target around 1450. So I think still more of a bullish environment, obviously, either from that target or when it breaks above. Now, I wouldn't be jumping in a trade right away when it breaks, but that's when I think there is definitely a bullish environment, and it's worth. We can zoom into lower time frames, look for a pullback, and try to get a position in that. Or if it does break here, I think that there's a good chance the target will hold. That's about it for this pair. I don't see anything else to discuss. All right, so thank you for that. Good question. So that's my view on today. We're going to very quickly see how the pound USD is responding via this wick or this candle, and how the euro dollar behaves in this hour and the next if we get a pullback and bounce. All right, there we go with the pound yen. It's already actually maintaining its course to the upside and getting a bit of a bounce. So it's close to getting a breakout as we speak. And that, could be very well a good breakout if the pound USD, especially if pound USD closes with a wick like that, for instance. Or if it has a bullish candle, even better. And if we do get pound strength, then we'll probably not get pound New Zealand break to the downside. And we'll probably not get the pound Swissy break to the downside, right? All right, so that's something interesting. You can see the correlations, by the way, by going to having actually the MT4 Supreme Edition for Admiral Market, and you can just drag the correlation matrix on it. And normally it is a bit faster than that, but let's see. My computer is maybe a bit slower because of the webinar. Let's see. There we go. There it is. So let's take a look at the correlation between pound USD and pound yen. Where's pound? There's pound yen. Pound yen is not on this chart. I don't have the pound yen, unfortunately, but we can see the pound USD and euro yen, right? And we can see there's a high correlation, just like the euro pound. So pound yen will probably have a high correlation too. All right, and we see the pound USD and euro USD not so correlated actually. Anyhow, pound USD, pound yen most likely do have that. So you can see a lot of these pairs with this correlation matrix. Yeah, for those of you that are maybe an hour later, indeed, we started about an hour and 8 minutes ago, and that's because Sunday the time went forward by an hour. Maybe not in UK, I'm not sure, but I think many countries it did. Not in the US, they already had it 3 weeks ago, I think, or 2 weeks ago. So now the webinar is at, actually it's a GMT time is 1 hour earlier, 6:45 instead of 7:45 indeed. But good to see you, Beverly. Although it is a bit later, but so I can make a quick recap actually now. You don't have it in UK. Okay, interesting. I thought somehow I assumed that UK had that too. Interesting. You're not in UK. Okay, cool. I don't know why I assumed you're in UK. I don't know. Funny how you assume things that are not true. I don't know why I thought that. That's cool. So basically, the summary of today. And regarding daylight savings time, it might make more sense not to change it. By the way, I think there's a lot of debate about that. Yeah, you got a trading account in pounds. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so let's take a look at the recap then. So your dollar, basically, Beverly, for you especially, we got, I think, under your dollar, still more of a bullish environment because, well, let me say it this way, it's certainly not very, very clear, but ultimately, I think this is still a good swing. We got a good bounce at the 38.2 fib, and price is getting back to that support, so it could still be a bouncing spot. But if it doesn't, and it starts to break below 111.40, then I would look for a hook back and a continuation down to 110.80 or 110.20, right, which could be bouncing spots. If it stays above 111.40, I think that and breaks above this, it could be a good breakout. First of all. Second of all, if it shows any weakness here, it could still be a bouncing spot, depending on the news on the Eurozone. Pound, if it shows a wick or a bullish candle, I think that's an interesting signal for a potential continuation here and break to the upside. Maybe after a bit of a dip. Whereas if the 4-hour candle is bearish, then it could be a strong bearish and price gets down like this, then that could be actually a signal for downside. So I'm going to definitely keep an eye on this 4-hour candle. I think how it closes, I think, could be giving the direction of the day. Pound yen looks like a breakout to the upside as we speak, actually. And in that case, we could see a follow through of this momentum that we're seeing right here. Sorry. Right. So I think that an entry just now, actually, above this top right here, is already worth it on the pound yen, with a stop loss below these bottoms. All right, the same holds true for New Zealand yen, which I think actually, let me take a look. I'm up now 3 pips. When it retraced this candle, I think with a stop loss below here, I think those are good potential trades as we break out of this triangle and perhaps see a continuation. And in that momentum, price has retraced a strong master candle. So I think that that candle is worth a stop loss and the retracement is worth an entry. So those are potential entries on the yens. Let's see. Other than that, I was talking about the importance of dollar yen. If it breaks this resistance, then the downside is invalidated. If it doesn't break the resistance but does break this channel, then we might see a downside indeed finally occur. Audio is I was talking about upside yesterday based on this candle, and that trade was not bad, but ultimately got knocked out when price went through these bottoms for roughly break even. So I would not be in that trade if anyone joined me by any chance. But if price breaks the support, we could see the Aussie correct. But it could also still use it as a bouncing spot, and we might see still this potential move. So interesting spot right here at the trend line. Kiwi 2, interesting bouncing potential, or if it breaks through 67, an interesting break potential. But I like the New Zealand yen more. I was saying dollar CAD in a triangle for a bigger reversal or a bigger continuation. And I think that pound New Zealand could have been ready for a downside break if there's pound weakness, which seems less likely now. Again, time will tell. And I don't like the pound odd and euro odd at this moment. And pound odd, I would say probably still best to stick to your daily fractal approach, I think, of trading that if you're still in it. And otherwise, I like the odd New Zealand because of the zigzag potential, but not to trade it to the downside, but to trade it, although it could have been a good trade here. Last night, actually, I didn't trade it, but I was looking at the charts because I was not going to be able to manage the trade because it was too late for me. It was already 9 p.m. and I knew I was not going to be able to trade it. But I was looking at this break here and I was actually about to trade that, or I would have liked to trade it if I had that time. And that trade is nicely moving its way. And that trade was based on the fact that we got momentum, we got a channel, and we're breaking that channel here. And I thought that was a good break for follow through. And that does seem to indeed pan out. Now I wouldn't say it's the best moment to join, perhaps, but I think still could be a good fall down to the 38.2 fib or 50, which are bouncing spots. We got a bit of a head and shoulders here. Another reason why yesterday the short, I think, was an optimal moment. Whether the pound weakness is over, yeah, it really depends from pair to pair. Pound Swissley looks very bearish still. Pound New Zealand too. Pound yen doesn't, but that's because of the yen maybe. Pound USD, I think it's a mess really. pound USD. Pound dollar looks bearish, but there's a bit of divergence, and there could be a bigger retracement. Yeah, it's a bit of a mixture, as you can see. I think that for pound dollar, this candle might give us some clue. Yeah, if you're in a long-term trade, you're gonna indeed, I guess, always risk some profit. Yeah, it's never gonna be optimal. You got a lot of profit now, and the daily fractal worked well. If you are nervous about the potential for a reversal, I don't know. I don't think there's much to do actually. I mean, no, I don't. I don't think that. I still think that at this moment, I don't see how moving the trail tighter would help you because still think that the daily fractal here, I think it's there. It's probably the best at the moment because now it doesn't make sense. I think to exit. You're risking about 180 pips, but then again, yeah, I don't know. I think this is not a fractal as yet. Well, I mean, one can always use a tighter stop loss, maybe just above these highs. But yeah, obviously there's always that risk that price hits this target and then turns. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that makes sense. That's the best approach, I think. But for new trades, I would not be interested in pound odd at the moment, nor the euro odd, nor the euro New Zealand. And that's about it, I guess. That's nothing much to say, I guess, at this moment. Here we're trying to break through, but be aware that it could still make a bit of a dip before breaking and continuing. I think that could be an interesting dip. So keeping an eye on this fib and this 4-hour candle. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for joining. We got more webinars going on, of course, tomorrow and Thursday. We got tomorrow's strategy, and Wednesday evening, then it takes a look at trading currency crosses, and then Thursday we take a look at understanding the flow of price and its communication. What is price telling us? How can we interpret that? What can we read from that? How can we use that? All of these things that basically we'll be discussing. So just understanding the flow of price and what's the language that is behind it. That's coming up Thursday, but then in the meantime, of course, and I have webinars on Wednesday. So I hope to see you in those webinars. Wish you all good luck with hunting and good trading, and see y'all soon. Cheers.